What's up everyone, Opsoldier here. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit. Well, first of all, I want to give you guys a rundown of how I ended up playing Dead by Daylight and kind of my opinions, our first impressions as killer on Dead by Daylight. So I have been sick for about a week and a half now due to the disease that shall not be named. Obviously I had to take a 2-week break and I was just not up to doing some video editing, so I figured I'd put some time in playing a game. Now, unfortunately, alongside this, I also had a thumb injury, and because of that, I haven't been able to play fighting games, which is unusual because normally that's kind of like the basis of what I practice extensively. This got me into Dead by Daylight. And Dead by Daylight has been a game that I've really enjoyed for the past, probably week or so, playing specifically Killer. Now, the thing is, Dead by Daylight is one of those games where it has such a big competitive aspect attached to it, but at the same time, it's not a competitive game. Like, if you just look at, like, the basis of Dead by Daylight, this game could never be competitive, especially with some of the perks that are put in, like Pop Goes the Weasel, where, like, literally they lose 1/4 of a gen because you hooked a survivor. Like, those type of things, those aren't, like, yeah, they add to, like, a meta, per se, like, quote-unquote meta, but it's not an actual, like, competitive game where you can compete in a tournament and there's, you know, this player versus this player will be, you know, the one player will win and there's A, B, C, D tier kind of thing. Like, that is just never going to happen, at least competitively, with Dead by Daylight. You could literally remove all perks and survivors will still have the advantage, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So anyway, long story short, Dead by Daylight at its heart is a casual game. There are a lot of players that want to treat it competitively, so let's just start with that basis. Like, there's a lot of players that want to treat it competitively, but at its basis, it's always going to be a casual game just because of how it's designed. So, with that said, I did have some impressions with Dead by Daylight. I played mostly Killer, just because I feel Killer is more interesting to play. I know some people like Survivor, but I'm not really into Survivor. I did do Survivor when I first started playing the game, and then I slowly learned that Killer is just more fun. And Killer also has, so this is another thing that a lot of people might want to actually talk about. So if you're a fighting game player, Killer might be your best option to try, because the thing about Killer is that it's similar to fighting games where you're one person versus, well, in this case, versus multiple people, but usually you're one person versus one person in fighting games. And with Killer, you're one person versus multiple people. And the kind of idea behind it, at least from what I understand, is that you are on your own. If you make a mistake, it's on you. There's no teammates that could put you at a disadvantage. It's just you. And that is something that I like about Dead by Daylight, and I think that's one reason that fighting game players tend to play Killer more than Survivor, just because there's no team aspect, and you can kind of play by yourself, and all of your mistakes are on you, so you can adjust. So anyway, with that said, those are a few things I just want to mention. Now we are going to talk about my impressions on Dead by Daylight. So, just kind of a blanket statement to begin of opinions. Remember, this is all opinions. I've only put 100 hours in. I've talked about this before. If you put 100 hours in, you do not have a good say on how the game plays yet. You need to put about 1,000 in before you can actually make a decision on how the game should play. And even then, like, I would argue, there's some players I'll play and they have no idea what they're doing, you know, even after 1,000 in. So let's talk about the first 100 hours. My thing is, for starters, this game is easier than any fighting game I've ever played. Even as Killer, which is it's clearly harder than playing Survivor, this game is just easier. Like, it's things are easy to understand. Characters are easy to play, and kind of killers are easy to figure out for the most part. Now, I haven't played every killer, but like the killers I played were pretty simple to play, like Leatherface, Billy, the Huntress, the artist. You could even argue like the Huntress isn't even that hard. Like hitting hatchets is just not hard compared to some of the easier things to do in fighting games, you know? And in my personal opinion, I think that this game is just easier. I've heard people tell me like, oh, Dead by Daylight is harder, or Dead by Daylight has complex parts to it that make it harder than any other fighting game. Or that make it hard like other fighting games. And it's just not true. The easiest fighting game is probably just as easy, if not harder, than Dead by Daylight. That's just the truth. Like, it's not... I'm not bashing on the game. I'm just saying that, like, ultimately, this game is not that hard. And I want you to understand that coming in, if this is the first time you played this as a fighting game player. Because, obviously, like, the reason I'm making this video is because I think that if you like fighting games, you'll like Dead by Daylight if you play Killer. There's two big problems for Killer, at least from my first experiences with Dead by Daylight. One of the big problems is problems behavior won't fix. So I've heard multiple times that behavior won't fix things like vault location or vaulting, stuff like that. So we'll talk about that. And then the other one is just inherent game mechanic problems that I've experienced as Killer. So I'll talk about the inherent game mechanics. One of the biggest inherent game mechanic problems as Killer, at least when you're playing most killers like Leatherface, Billy, like killers with simple powers like Leatherface, Billy, Wraith, you know, Ghostface, like those are all killers with like really simple powers. Even granted, I haven't played Ghostface, but you can't be in two places at once. Like, this is a huge problem. Like, survivors could be working on a gen, and you could be chasing. You could have one of the shorter chases, and they could finish a gen, even though your chase wasn't that long. And it's just simply because you've got 3 set of survivors on one gen, and then you're chasing another survivor away from that gen. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, there's just times where you have to give up chases because the survivor is leading you away from the gen you need to stop from popping. So it's just like, I don't know, that is something that really irks me as Killer. There needs to be there needs to be a more consistent way you can get survivors off gens without having to be there. I don't know what that is. I know totems do a good job of that. I know certain characters like Demogorgon can teleport by traveling through portals, and I'm definitely going to play Demogorgon next because I think that's a big advantage that you need to have for chases and getting people off gens. But this is an inherent problem, and it's just simply because it's 1 versus 4. Like, you can't really do anything about it. You know, unless the killer has a power, you can't really do much about it. Like, you're kind of forced into chasing survivors off gens or just letting gens pop, because the only way you'll be able to down a survivor is if you let gens pop. The other inherent problem is I don't know why, but it takes longer to down survivors and for them to kind of get off gens. This is something I don't understand fundamentally. Why does it take so long to like actually like kill a survivor on the hook? Like, there needs to be, I feel like it would be more enjoyable if there was a faster way to kill survivors on hook, or a faster way to down them outside of a chainsaw. Like, that's something that I don't like. I don't know how they would fix that, but it is something that glares on me. Like, it makes you feel like you're not a strong killer, you know? Like, the only time I feel like a really strong, dangerous killer is when I'm playing someone who has an insta-down, like Billy or Bubba, you know? Like, those are the only times, like, I feel like I have a lot of power, because I don't have to strike someone, then chase them again, strike them again. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's weird. I feel like this is a problem with looping. Maybe I need to get better at preventing loops. I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, like, sometimes I just don't feel that way. I don't know. I feel like I did everything I could have done, and it's just the game takes so long to down survivors that I'm put in this situation. Sometimes killers don't have answers to serious looping. So what do I mean by this? This is just simply, if I get looped in certain areas, and I'm playing like Wraith, or I'm playing like Bubba, there are certain situations where I just don't have an out to what they're doing. Like, I have to give up on the chase because the loop is just too good. And I don't like this. I don't know how they fix this either, because I've heard like they've already attempted to do this multiple times. But I just feel like, you know, if you have just like a very simple power, there needs to be some sort of counter to the, you know, this type of looping stuff, you know, because my answer is usually just the artist. You know, it's to set up crows, and then like they have to hold W, like they just don't have a choice there. But with characters like Leatherface, like I just don't feel that way. Like I feel like most of the time I'm just put in a position that's not really beneficial for me. So I figured I would share that too. Like that is something that kind of annoys me a lot. Like I wish there was a way, like there was some sort of out to that, but to me it just seems like there isn't. So anyway, this is something I hear a lot. So now we're going to kind of get into the behavior stuff. I hear this a lot. I hear players excusing the game by saying, well, killer's naturally harder. That means that the game is just going to be harder for killer, and it doesn't need to be fixed. No, I disagree. Now, again, I do want to stress this. I've only put in 100 hours. I put less than 200 hours in so far. I'm going to put 1,000 hours into killer. I'm going to play different killers, and I'm going to make my final decision based off of that. But what I will say is that if something is harder, there should be some sort of reward for it. And sometimes I don't feel that way with killer. Like I feel like I'm working harder just because I don't want a team, you know, like I'm working harder because I don't want to play survivor. That's it. Like it doesn't feel like I'm working harder and my killer's like, you know, really powerful, and that's, you know, I'm only working harder because I'm playing killer, but like I have like really good powers to deal with some of the survivors. Like I don't ever feel that way. I feel like I'm just working harder, and I don't have like I'm not on the same level as the survivors, you know. That's how I feel, but I could be wrong again. Like it comes down to like I haven't played this game for long. I've only put in 100 hours. This is first impressions. But as far as I'm concerned right now, from my opinions, what is going on in this current moment, the game does feel survivor-sided. It feels like the killer really, really has to work hard to get a 2-kill. There's been times where like I just straight have to camp hooks because like there's just no answer, you know? And so I figured I would share that. And finally, just kind of like something to touch on behavior and some things that some players have said. Yes, killers can be feared. I played multiple horror games where it feels like that. You feel powerless. You feel like it's much harder to play against a certain individual in the game, boss character, whatever. Killers should feel like boss characters. I think that's one of the main issues with the game. Killers don't feel like boss characters. They don't feel like characters from your iconic horror movies that people are afraid of. Like the survivors just loop them all day, you know. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I feel like the solution is very simple. I feel like it's, you know, just make it to where it's easier to down people, you know. Like I don't know, like it just seems like there's something you can make really simple, and you just wouldn't have to worry about it as much. Like, or maybe like, you know, if survivors are near killers for long periods of time, you can insta down them for chasing them for a really long period of time. I don't know, just something. But anyway, you know, that could be a perk, and that's another thing. The final thing I want to talk about is the perks. So why is it that survivors can carry only dead hard, and all of a sudden it's extremely hard to deal with a survivor, but then the killer has to carry like 3 different perks just to deal with some of the fast popping gens? Like you have to carry ruin, pop, you have to carry undying, so in case they get your pop, your ruin. Like it's just, I just don't get it. Like that's something I'll never understand. Like you can't really justify that. Like killer's forced into 3 different perks, you know, 2 to 3 different perks right away, just simply for being killer, while survivor isn't forced into that at all. Like survivor just needs dead hard, and not even that. They don't even need dead hard. If they use their teamwork, it makes it really hard for killer to work, you know, except when someone's on the hook. So I don't know. I just feel like survivor just doesn't, or killer just is always at a disadvantage, you know. And then the last thing too, this is kind of the last thing I want to touch on, and this is definitely a pet peeve and a gripe. Well, there's two things. Why is there a hatch? This is a team-based game on the survivor side. If you're the last survivor, you should just die. Like, it literally should be like that. Like, you shouldn't be given another chance, because it's a team-based game. If you get fucked because you're a team, that's your problem. Like, you should get punished for not working as a team. There shouldn't be a way to get out if you're by yourself. And then finally, when I close the hatch, why when I close the hatch you have a third chance, like second and third chance mechanics, I swear, for survivors, man. You have a third chance in escaping through the exit gate. And if the exit gates are on the other sides in the map, the killer literally fucked themselves by closing the hatch. Like, it's just, to me, like, there's so many things that just, they irk me in this game as killer, because it gives the survivor more and more opportunities to escape. Now, I've heard the hatch isn't the same escape as a normal escape. I don't care. Like, that's not my point. My point is, like, if you're a survivor, you should be working together to escape the gate, you know, to get in through the gates. But the hatch is like an extra added weird thing where someone could simply just escape through the hatch and you had no control over that. So anyway, those are all the things I wanted to talk about. I figured I would share. Again, I want to stress, I've only put 100 hours in. You know, this is 100 hours opinions. I've only played Leatherface, Billy, Artist, Huntress, and Trickster. So there's still a huge select group of people or characters that I have to play. Like, I look forward to playing Demogorgon, because I feel like Demogorgon will fix a lot of the issues that I have with the game. And basically not being able to be in multiple places at once. I feel like Demogorgon's going to fix that problem a lot. So anyway, that's all I wanted to share today. Have fun playing Dead by Daylight. I'm going to play this game until my thumb heals. So probably until February 17th, which is when King of Fighters comes out. I'm literally, like, when King of Fighters comes out, I'm going to start doing rehab exercises on my thumb, because this thumb's been injured for a while. And then I'm going to start playing King of Fighters and Street Fighter. So anyway, figured I'd share all this. Have fun playing Dead by Daylight, and see you guys later.